Hey everyone, it's Ariana from the blog, and here we are, and I am bringing these Q&A Wednesdays back after a break in the summertime when I was a little too embarrassed to make a video around Amelia. So Q&A Wednesdays are when I get to answer the questions that you have for me and chat a little bit. It's kind of a nice break from writing, and I feel like it's a great way to connect with you. So today we have kind of a special edition of Q&A Wednesday, talking all about our move to Spain and also just kind of how these expat things work in general. I got a lot of questions from you about some sort of details and things you wanted to know about our upcoming move. And then I also wanted to address today some questions that we get over and over again, kind of about finding expat jobs and things like that. So to start with, yes, we're moving to Spain, and I am just beyond thrilled, and I'm trying not to be obnoxious about it because this has been a dream for years and years for me, and then also a dream for my family, and I can't believe it's happening, and we're just so excited. So we move in February, and the way that will work is probably like Jeff will finish up work on a Friday, we'll pack up and fly to Spain on a Monday and start work. He'll start work by visiting his base, his department on base and all that stuff that same day. So that's kind of how it works. There's no big gap between jobs. It's just finishing up work at one spot and starting at another spot the next day. So our start date is mid-February, and that is pending all of the paperwork and visas and things like that we need to take care of between now and then. So hopefully with a 5-month lead time, everything will go off without a hitch and we'll be able to start right on schedule. So that's that. And the part of Spain that we're moving to is along the southern coast. And it's in the Cadiz. Cadiz is the closest place, or if I am using my proper Spanish pronunciation, Cadiz. And it's along the southern coast and like about an hour and a half drive, I believe, from Gibraltar. So it's kind of just right there in the middle. And we do not know which town we'll be living in. His assignment is at the base in Rota, and that's a possibility as a place to live. Most of his colleagues are living in the bigger city called El Puerto de Santa Maria, which apparently is one of the oldest ports in Europe, so that's kind of cool. And so, just like when we moved here, we didn't know where we would live necessarily, but doing a little bit of research and stuff, we thought even before we moved that we might want to find a place to live in Bury St. Edmunds. So we haven't decided yet where we're going to look. And here's another question that gets asked that I can answer, is whether or not we'll go to Spain first and maybe try to find a place to live and all that stuff. In the past, when we've made these moves, that hasn't been an option at all because we couldn't necessarily afford to fly from the US to Europe just to look for a house. And so when we arrived in a new place, that was our first time. We'd never been to Germany, we'd never been to England. And so when we showed up, it was to live here. And so this time is kind of cool because a flight from UK to Spain is totally doable. And so we feel kind of excited that we could actually have the possibility of scoping out our new place that we're going to be living and maybe even finding a home. So I think we'll probably do that in January. This is the part that tends to be the hardest, at least for me, when it comes to moving, is that part where you're staying somewhere temporarily and looking for a home or waiting for your home to be ready. And so if we can do something to minimize that part, that will make everything better. I just really, I like to just be at home. So when we moved here, we arrived in England the 1st of August, and we weren't able to move into our house until 1st of October. So that was a really long couple months. It wasn't easy. And so if we can avoid that, that would be great. So hopefully in January, we can go scout out a place, and can't wait to show pictures with you. So another question we get is logistical. Like, how do you move from one country to another? Well, we've done it a few times now, and we are really lucky in that his company has agreed to ship all of our goods to our new place in Spain. So what usually happens is a couple weeks before you move, a company comes in and they actually wrap everything up and pack it in. And we have to sort through stuff, and we have to get rid of a lot of stuff, and we have to, you know, make sure that we have what we need for 2 weeks on this side, and then however long it takes on that side. But it's fairly seamless as long as you're willing to camp in your house for a little while, minimally. And that's what we're expecting this time. In the past, we did not have our goods shipped necessarily. And well, when we moved to Germany, we actually did get rid of almost everything. And it was liberating. But once we got to Germany, we realized that was maybe a mistake, because we had nothing and everything was incredibly, incredibly expensive, and we had no idea, and we couldn't get things secondhand, and it was really challenging. So when we moved from Germany back to the US, before we moved back to England, we had only a few of our newly acquired belongings shipped, some basic furniture that we'd picked up. But when we got our stuff here in England, we still had a lot of missing pieces, a lot of gaps to fill. So over the last 3 years, of course, we've filled those gaps, and now I'm trying to get rid of stuff. And I don't want to bring anything that's too big, because from the homes we've been looking at online, it looks like room sizes may be quite a bit smaller, and homes in general are smaller. So, you know, those are some logistical things that we have to think about now. But I'm just thrilled that we can take our stuff with us, and that someone else is taking care of that. So let's see, another question we get a lot, and I can see why, is about what is Amelia going to do for school. So this was actually one of those things that made us hesitate about the move, because I feel like, well, I don't feel like, it is a fact that she's been to so many schools since we've been here, and she has some academic challenges, but one of the things that she is not at all challenged in is language skills. She is super, super good and advanced as far as language goes, and reading and all that stuff. So something that I realize is actually an opportunity for us is that we can hold her back a grade. And that is really good, because they started with academics here pretty early, and I feel like they really stress these kids out. It's just my perspective on the English educational system. It seems really stressful for the kids, and they do so much academics so early on. And my preference is more like, you know, what they were doing in Germany, which Amelia was a part of, which was more just play-based until the kids are 7. So anyway, what we're going to do is have her go to a local Spanish school, and really just focus on, you know, getting used to things, and not worrying too much about the academics, but focusing on learning to speak Spanish, and just kind of getting acclimated. And then she will be a year, you know, behind where she is now. So I think that'll be really helpful. She's kind of on the edge of the next year. Anyway, she has a summer birthday, so I feel like we have some good leeway there. And I think it'll be really good for her. So I think that's something that's going to be a challenge, but it's a challenge that I feel really good about for her. And I just feel so thrilled that we can give her the opportunity to acquire another language, another culture, you know, just another aspect of who she's going to be in the world. So that's something I really value, and that's our plan. And I think it's good to also mention here that I was 8 years old, like Amelia is, when my family moved overseas. And although I was homeschooled and not going to a local school, I think it's a really good age to go. And I think it took me about 6 months before I was pretty close to fluent in Cebuano. And so it was a great age for me to start with a new language and to kind of adapt. And so far, Amelia hasn't really expressed any anxiety at all about changing schools or going to a Spanish school. She's just excited about learning the language. And so I'm happy about that, that at least for now, she doesn't have that worry in her mind. Probably closer to, she'll feel a little anxious, but we'll just work through that. That's just one of the things that we have to handle in our alternative lifestyle over here. So that's the story with Amelia. And so I think that's all the logistical stuff about Spain. But people keep asking about what kind of job my husband does. How can they find a job like this? How can they find a job overseas? I don't have all the answers to that question, but I can tell you a little bit more information and hopefully find some helpful links that might work for you. So my husband's background is special educator. And when he first started working, he taught special ed kindergarten. And that was in California for a few years. Then when we moved to Oregon, he was still special educator, but for preschool age, and he wasn't working in a classroom anymore. He was going into homes and sort of coaching the parents and doing home visits with these kids, and then also holding kind of groups for developmental skills and things like that. So that job was really instrumental because it was kind of a segue between what he has now, and he's hired as a special educator within a medical clinic for early childhood, which is birth to 3 years old. And he, again, doesn't work within the school system. He works in a medical clinic with physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, developmental psychologists, and developmental pediatricians. So, and there's probably some specialization I left out there. So he kind of works together with this team, and they go to the homes of families that have a child with special needs or may have special challenges like a premature birth or something like that. And then he coaches the parents on how to best help them. And, it's kind of like a sort of holistic approach. I mean, he works with the other therapists and stuff like that. So as far as I understand it, that's his job. And there are a lot of jobs at schools with special ed programs or special needs programs. I'm sorry, I don't know if I said schools or bases. What I meant to say was bases, who have an early childhood development program. They do hire child psychologists, OTs, PTs, SLPs, audiologists, a whole bunch of different things. And a lot of these are civilian positions. So you can look for jobs in that way if you have more of a clinical capacity or a special educator. And there are a lot of teaching jobs available. We've never gotten one, but it's possible in the future that Jeff could transition over to the Department of Defense educational system. And those are pretty good jobs as far as I've heard. And of course there are medical jobs, a lot of medical jobs for US bases and things like that. So I will try to nail down a couple of links to share with you if you're interested in looking for jobs overseas. And of course, outside of the US military, there are a lot of jobs for teachers. And I can share a link for that as well. And of course, we think that these are good jobs to get. We're really happy for every single one of them that we've gotten, and we really love living overseas. And while they're not perfect, and at least with Jeff's job, there are some aspects where we were left really vulnerable, like giving us a different contract than the one we signed up for when it was time to renew, and some hardships like that, and a little bit of instability. So far, it's worked out really well for us, and we're willing to take another contract with his current company if that means bringing us to Spain for a few years. So that's everything I can think of that I've been asked a lot. If you have a question that I have not answered, of course, go ahead and ask in the comments. And then I'd also love to hear from you. Are you looking for jobs overseas? Have you ever worked overseas? What was your experience and what kind of job did you have? And then maybe if any of you have any good resources for finding overseas jobs, please share. That would be really helpful because I know a lot of people are really interested and I just want to help however I can and be supportive. So anyway, hope to talk to you a little bit in the comments, and be sure and also leave comments asking any questions that you might have for next week. All right, it's great chatting with you. Thanks for watching. Bye.